So, I want to talk about an idea I've been having a while, and this has to do with the new RNA vaccines. So, briefly, how these RNA vaccines work is that you put into someone's body RNA through a particle to carry it. They call it lipid nanoparticles in this case, where it's lipid. This means it's a type of fat with attached to something that is usually not a fat that is water soluble, and the fat things kind of go in the inside of the particle, where the water soluble is exposed to particles exposed to water. It is there are many types of lipids. But yeah, here's the this is the water soluble stuff on the outside. Here it's also a better one. Water, and here's the non one. You can also have just one layer. In this case, the polar stuff is more the inside. The non-polar stuff. And there's many versions where you change the different fats, or you change the different outer layer. Cholesterol is actually a type of lipid for the most part. And there's a lot of mix-up with it. And then you put the RNA from this into it, and you inject it into a person somehow, and it infects your cells. And your cells just produce pieces of the virus, not the whole virus. They can't do that. Not everything is encoded in this one. And it's pieces of the virus then train your body to get immunity. It's even a little more complicated than that, because you have to figure out lipids that are stable, that are effective for delivering stuff, and all these other things with the lipids. And the RNA, you have to engineer it so that you have a reaction actually to these particles they are making, so you actually produce an immune response. And you have to maybe engineer RNA to be more stable, because RNA is notoriously not that stable. A brief overview what RNA is. DNA makes RNA, and RNA is very similar to DNA but less stable, and then that makes protein. The reason why RNA is in the middle is RNA you can modify more easily in your body than DNA, so it lets you do all these cool tricks with the environment and stuff. And it also protects the DNA. It's like someone has a master textbook, and all these people are copying off the textbook. The master one, no one does serious stuff, so if any of the copies get damaged, the master's still okay. And RNA can also be produced a lot more fast than DNA, so it can train stuff, so we can read more and you can produce more of a body. So my alternative idea for a new type of vaccine is to make bacteria make the RNA, which is already what we do, but then we take that RNA out of the bacteria and we put in the lipids. What if you could have it make the RNA to infect you in a lipid nanoparticle within a pill, or maybe injection, but it would be pill. If you injection, you have to coat it with something so the bacteria doesn't just go rampant in your body and there's no big reaction. But in the pill, you would have to worry less about coating and stuff. But this bacteria continuously produces it. And because it continuously produces it, it can produce more of it, so each one doesn't have to be as infectious. But this will give you a lot of advantages. First of all, the bacteria is a lot easier to grow. So this whole thing, once you develop it in the beginning, which might take a while to develop it, because you might have to figure out how to practice RNAs producing out of it. But once you develop this bacteria once, you don't have to do it actually again and again for new types of RNA vaccines. And you just grow it in a petri dish, and you can just really easy, and you don't have to do all these other purification steps they're doing nowadays. So a lot cheaper to produce and a lot faster in the long run. Next one is that because these bacteria grow at room temperature and can be stored, and then producing the RNA, that's the delicate stuff, continuously, storage and delivery becomes a lot cheaper. You don't have to use cryogenic things. You wouldn't have to worry about that, which is a huge help if you want to inoculate someone somewhere in the middle of nowhere, or somewhere where they don't have good electricity or heating or cooling, or for delivery, to deliver stuff much faster. It also saves a ton of electricity with cooling stuff, so its environmental impact will be much lower. As a kind of a secondary consequence, a much lower environmental impact, You could even breed them or make them on site, so you'd have to just deliver like little tiny little packets. With delivery being less of an issue, there's less likely that there's going to be a mess up. You're going to also need less training of people. If there is a mess up, recovering is faster because you can just deliver more of it. All these other things about it. You could also, because this tech has less stuff to make it, you could even deliver the instructions for someone to make it, and they can more easily make it at home, or not at home, but in a lab. Because unlike, they don't need the big fancy equipment and stuff, they just need to make these little bacteria, which people have already done once. And especially if they have a good stock culture that already has some of it in place. This is unlike the Pfizer one, where you have to not only make the bacteria, you have to make all this purification equipment, get the lipids and all these other things. Which also means there's a lot more complicated supply chains with a lot more failure points with the lipid deliveries and actually making the vaccines in the first place, not even delivering the vaccines, which is something I forgot to mention. So I meant to make this pills. So another one is you could make this eventually into for a lot of diseases pills. So there are some vaccines that are pills already instead of injections, because it can absorb through the entire intestines over a lot longer than a quick with the current vaccines where you have to just do it, get it all in you in an hour. This one you could slowly have it go into your body for days even, or through the entire digestive tract, and not one local place. And with less monitoring, I get why you need less monitoring. You can also do this. With also it produces more, so you need to inject less, potentially more potent. Well, the idea about pills would be it's safer. Pills are safer than needles. There's always a risk of contamination with needles. And there's always a risk of pain, hurting, swelling and stuff. Very small, but there's always. And you also need less training personnel for people to do this, and less safety precautions with pills. It helps people with fear of needles and stuff like that calm down this fear in general, which might help combat fear of vaccines if they're not fearful of the needles and stuff. It lets people do it at home, which is a huge help with just getting it done quickly and distribution. It also all this will lower the rate of actually disease getting transmitted if you're in a pandemic or something, because you have less people in contact with each other all the time. So safer that way. Another thing you could do with all this technology is you could have actual kill switch within the pill. And that is, you could have something you take if you start feeling really sick or something to kill all the bacteria and end them. And that could make it a lot safer in case you have a dangerous reaction. And that's something you can't really do with a conventional pill. Conventional vaccines just kill it off at any point. Not only can you not just kill it off, you could even kill it off and restart it in some cases, or just kill it off. Kill it off, and you could use a variety of antibiotics, which is not the safest idea because they're antibiotic resistant, or you can make the bacteria have just insert a gene that kills all the bacteria if they have a certain compound. It's not dangerous, but not common, and that could be, there's a lot of very safe dyes actually. Blue and organic, blue methyl comes to mind, and blue methyl dye comes to mind in particular, that are very, very safe, and you can train a bacteria kill, but don't do anything. Well, they're perfectly safe and just don't do anything, and they're cheap, and you won't find them common in nature. A bunch of other ways you could do it. It could be a couple different combination of drugs could kill it or something, but you get the point. Another idea would be for is that you could produce more types of different RNAs. So right now with the current ones, you have a limit because of the dosage you can give and how fast you have to give it and blah, blah, blah. So you only produce maybe a few types of RNA. They haven't actually told us what's in the vaccine, but that means you not have as much broad antibodies attacking every little part of it. Attacking more different parts of the virus will give you great immunity to one virus without as much reaction, but also makes it harder for the virus to mutate because it has to mutate every single protein in it. Well, that might be exaggeration. And it can even give you more resistance to other viruses because other viruses might have similar proteins, and that way it boosts up your immune system to recognize other viruses better, which is something they've shown. It also means in development you have to be less selective and you have to figure out less what particular virus target to do. Instead you can just dump them all in one packet. Also, actually going in the wrong order, is that you could have a longer dosage, which means that it gives you the RNA and everything over a longer period of time, which could mean safer because you don't have as much of a immediate effect. It could be more effective. That's why you have a booster after all. So actual viral infection takes a while to take hold, unlike a vaccine. And then while your immune system is building up and getting into gear, and once it's the longer it takes, the more it's going to likely remember that virus. So you could potentially get rid of booster shots, which will make everything with steroids price even more affordable in development. And yeah, that's reaction. And last one that I want to talk about is you could even design what I would call smart ones. Now, a viral infection and the way you produce antibodies follows a certain curve. It starts off, I should make that thicker, it starts off very, very small and rapidly increasing in your body, then it plateaus off. And then your immune system comes and makes it go down. This isn't what nature does. Your body then reacts to it at a certain pace and takes the time. And if you put more virus particles than it can react to at once, it's not going to build up immunity as much. It's just excess, and only later on. So you can make it match this curve of what your immune system can actually handle a lot better. And then you can have it come in stages where it builds up, goes back down, and builds up and goes back down, like a wave. This would have the benefit of that it's more like how your immune system actually gets really strong, where if it clears out once, it kind of starts to forget. But then the next time it builds up a much rapid more response and then really remembers it, compared to one long drawn out infection also. So the wave idea could help it. With training and also taking breaks can help your immune system organize and your body recover with the wave at the low point when it's not producing as much. Other things is you could do it is you could have automatic kind of skill switches if you want to go really futuristic, where it detects where if your body is going in the most extreme case anaphylactic shock, the less extreme case the immune system is getting a little too high wired up or something, and it produces less or totally stops until your body calms down. This could make it even safer, and it could prevent a lot of the side effects. So instead it's working for weeks doing this, instead of just one rapid burst that makes you feel sick or nauseated, it stops just before you kind of really feel sick and calms down. Now that also might mean you might not achieve immunity fast enough, and so on and so on. So there'll be a lot of fine tuning. And also we know a lot of things that indicate immune reaction stuff, but we don't know exactly how this would work with this. So there could be a rough draft one that has some of these features, then you could make a better and better one. And you would have to do a lot of testing, which would mean in this case people actually getting sick, so you're not majorly sick, and you can always give them an EpiPen to stop it. But it would be a more risky one to get people know people, where you listen to immune reaction, you try to figure out what's dangerous immune reaction or going too fast in them, and then you purposely stop the immune reaction, which means just putting people in the anaphylactic shock on multiple times. So it would need a lot of volunteers that are willing to do this in the most extreme one for the best one, or you could just do a less of good one and just do it on the very, very, very safe side. I think for volunteers it's okay, and I think there will be people willing to volunteer for this. Well, thank you very much for listening. Please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers in a year and 4,000 watch hours, which is really hard, but with your help I think I can do it. So, and I'm doing this so I can make a little bit of a side income, but so mostly so I can promote my channel more and educate more people. Also, please share it and try to get your friends to join. And if you have any ideas for future videos, any comments, suggestions, or anything, please leave them in the comment section below. And if you know my contact, you can also DM me. It doesn't help the channel as much, but it's more of a good way to have a conversation. I just don't want to give out my DMs to everyone. Thank you very much. Goodbye.